Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Gemini Rising. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Anne Wilkie.
Hello.
And today's guest is someone that I'm very excited to share with all of you. She is a soul contract practitioner, Gellyahnah Aakhen. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did great.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Gemini Rising.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, ladies.
I think Anne and I have so many questions for you, but I think the best place to start for people who maybe haven't seen your content before, what is a soul contract? What information can it give us, and how does it all work?
Absolutely. So a soul contract is something that you yourself, your soul, your higher consciousness, it's like a divine promise that you're making to yourself and the creator, your guides, before any reincarnation. And so it's essentially a promise. Okay, here are the lessons I'm going to work on. Here are the generational traumas I might try to work through. Here is this how I'm going to show up in service. So it's a whole set of essentially your entire experience that you want to have in this incarnation, and all of that. I mean, there's many things. We're not going to go into every single detail because there's many details, but essentially it's your experience. Now, I do want to say, just because the soul pre-planned it doesn't mean the human will do it. But in essence, the soul contract is what your higher self agrees to before incarnation.
I just want to ask one follow-up on that quickly, Anne. So I'm so sorry. But okay, so have you read much of Dolores Cannon's work, and does this kind of fall in line with her theory from all the hypnosis and everything that she's done, that this is all pre-planned, and so this is just putting it on paper so we can actually see it, as opposed to just sort of fumbling through and trusting our gut?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much familiar with Dolores's work, and it does go in line with a lot of what she says. I mean, Dolores said a lot of things, but she does speak about soul contracts. She speaks about soul contracts also, how they pertain to us with other people. And more of the work that I focus on is the soul contract you have with yourself.
So in doing the soul contract reading for people, you're looking at their names and the sounds with their names, or could you walk us through
Absolutely.
how you actually do a reading for someone?
Yeah. So the way that I look at somebody's soul contract is through the sound vibration of their birth name. So essentially, what you would give me, your first name, middle name, if you have a last name, I take that information and I convert it into sound frequencies. Now, the sound frequencies that we're using here, they pertain to ancient Hebrew, because the Hebrew language, it's one of the sacred languages. It's the pure vibration of the creator, of source energy. There's a few of them. Don't quiz me on it, but Hebrew is one of them. And so that's what we're converting it into. And then once I have the sound frequencies, I put it around a Merkaba, right, which is a sacred geometry symbol. It basically looks like a Star of David, so triangle facing down, triangle facing up. And by putting it around the Merkaba, I'm able to see the karma that somebody brought into this lifetime, their unique talents, goals, and ultimately, what is the whole purpose of this incarnation, being their soul destiny.
How long did it take you to learn all of this?
So a great question. And I did learn that. Just to clarify, this isn't something I channeled in. I studied this. I came across this work when I was 38, and I specifically share ages with people because what I find, there's cycles. So I talk a lot about age cycles. Like 38 is complete deconstruction and rebuilding. So we can talk about that later in the show if we want to. But for me, I discovered this work around 38, and I saw an interview with my teacher on Gaia. And it's interesting you asked me how long did it take me, because from the moment I saw him speaking, I had a full-on physical reaction. Like literally, it was like every cell in my body, my soul, everything was screaming, pay attention, pay attention, pay. And it was like a watershed moment. Like I was sitting on my couch and I'm like, who is this man? What is he talking about? Like, ran to my computer, like, the show's still on. I'm at my computer. I'm like, where does he exist? Where can I find, I was like, I am studying this. I don't even know what this is, but I'm studying it. And I believe that was a soul recognition, right? My soul had, like, I've done this work before. So it came very naturally to me. I did study with him. I took all the levels. Then I studied with another teacher. It's the thing about these frequencies, there's always something else that I'm uncovering. And at this point, I'm about 5-6 years into it, like thousands of, not many thousands, but, hundreds and thousands of readings that I've done myself. And as much as I think I know about these frequencies and as comfortable as I am with them, there's always something else to uncover.
And is this an ancient tradition, a Hebrew tradition? Where does it originally come from?
It is an ancient tradition, yeah. So the person that channeled in this work, his name is Frank Alpert, and he channeled it in the 80s, I believe. Frank is really well known for his work, like on Atlantis and whatnot. I mean, he channeled in a lot of incredible information, and this was one of the things he channeled in. My teacher, Nicholas, who I studied with, he met Frank. I don't know what year he met him, but he came to one of his workshops, and Nicholas fell in love with this work, and Nicholas took it and expanded on it. And so that's the more recent background of it. But we know that this was used in ancient times, and this was sort of a revival of it.
It's really interesting because we've been doing this show for over a year at this point, and most people that have become astrologers or moved down a path where they've shifted from, I guess, a mainstream job, you would call it, to something spiritual and guiding people in a sense, all of them have talked about these moments where there is a teacher of some sort that is speaking to them, and there is this guttural reaction to what is in front of them, and learning the information it's almost like they already understand it, but they have to go through the process for it to be in front of them. So I find it fascinating that there's a very similar thing happened for you. So I'm assuming then it was very easy for you to pick up and figure out as you were learning.
It honestly was. Like, I tell people I understand this language better than I speak English, right?
And,
like it sits in my body.
And is everything that you get during a reading, is it all what you've learned through studying this and obviously delving deeper and deeper and deeper, or are you at a point where there is a certain amount of it that is channeled and there is just an inner knowing as you're looking at these charts?
Well, all the information and all the frequencies was channeled, and that's what I learned. What I discover myself is sometimes the combination where it sits, right? Because as people come into me, and it's like people from all over the world, right? Different cultures and everything. So like, somebody asked me, do you see patterns? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, and this is sort of what emerges for me, right? And this is more of what I've learned from doing this work with my own clients, is taking the information that I learned from my teachers, applying it in the readings, and then connecting other dots. Right. So for instance, somebody that might have an 11-2 frequency in their chart along with a 6-6, that usually tells me they're an entrepreneur, a powerful one. Like, that's like, if somebody with that frequency has a job, I'm like, how do you feel about that? And they're usually like, not so good. It's a very entrepreneurial type of a soul. Somebody that has an 11-2 and a 7-7, they're everyone's unofficial therapist. Like, this is everybody comes to them with everything, so I'm like, and oftentimes I'll say, they're like, no, I actually get paid for it. I'm a paid therapist. I'm like, okay, well, because that's what your soul's here to do. Like, so certain like I've learned sort of certain combinations and how they play out. And then cultures are different too. Right. So the way it plays out in one culture is different than how it plays out in a different one.
I'm so curious if we go, okay, let's go all the way back to a child is born, And the parents decide to give them a name, whether they've already decided at the beginning, while pregnant, they have their names picked out exactly. Some people, I think it's sort of like I had ideas with my then husband, and then I would always say, I need to see the baby before I can decide fully if that's the right name. So if we believe that there are these karmic or soul patterns that kind of come in with their names, how do we get named? Is that part of our soul contract as well? Or is that how our name comes in?
That's a wonderful question. So the soul chooses the name, and the parents are divinely inspired by the soul's, the soul sort of nudges them, right? So whenever I have this reel or like TikTok, whatever, whenever I post it, it goes crazy viral because I essentially say in there that it's your soul that chooses the name, and how every parent has a story of how they named their child. And I cannot tell you how many women say to me, I had a dream and the child literally introduced him or herself. And like for me, I'll tell you my story. I have a daughter, she's 12, and 2 years before she was conceived, mind you, I wasn't doing this work. Okay. At that point in my life, I had a very different existence. So I'm at this women's conference, and this woman got up on stage and she introduced herself. Her name was Eris. And the moment, I've never heard that name before. The moment she said her name, I had this like goosebump, vibrational moment. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a daughter and her name is going to be Eris. Like, I just knew it. So, and then my daughter's name is Eris. And I've always asked her, I'm like, do you like your name? Do you like, and to the point where she's irritated with me. She's like, I love my name. Leave me alone. Like, so, so it's actually the soul that inspires us. And some people, they've had a name picked out since they were kids, right? Like somebody loved the name Sadie, and they're like, from 3 years old, when I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Sadie. And then they have a daughter and they name her Sadie. Like they just had this knowing. Or what you said, Anne, they have an idea, or they think they have this, and then the baby comes out and they're like, that is not a Sadie. That is not, that's a Joanne, or, whatever. So I hear stories like this all the time. So the parents they just know. Mm-hmm. And if it's not the parents, sometimes the siblings. Like I helped name my brother.
Oh, wow.
Or the aunt or the uncle, or, when we get named after somebody, like the soul knows that. It's all taken into account.
I love that.
I don't have children, but I remember there was a dog I was getting one time, and I knew what his name was going to be, and I thought it was great. And I saw him several times before I brought him home, and I kept calling him that name. And one day I walked out, I went, that's not his name. It's not his name. And I was so upset. And I went, he looks like a big fat pretzel. And that was his name, Pretzel. So it happens with the animals as well. They just, they are who they're meant to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've got a whole bunch of notes because I kept the ideas and the questions kept coming through. So I'm just trying to figure out which direction to go in first. What do you think is the benefit of people understanding their soul contract?
Oh, huge. Validation. Because I will tell you, most people that come into me know exactly who they are, but they either struggle with self-worth, self-confidence. I'm not special. Like, who do I think I am to take on this mission? But most people deep down know exactly who they are, right? It's just all that societal conditioning. You can't be spiritual and make money. I'm the wrong person to say that to, but okay, you can tell me that all day long, but people have all these like preconceived ideas from, societal upbringing. So the biggest takeaway that most of my clients get is the extreme validation when me, a stranger off the internet, just by looking at their name, verbalizes their deepest desires. They're like, how did you know? And I'm like, well, it's in your chart. Like, I'm not reading you psychically. I am looking at your chart. I might be reading them. You know what I mean? Like, I have my own intuitions, right? So there is an intuitive process, but it's usually in their soul contract first.
And then where does the 7-year stages come in. So we have soul contracts, but then does that come in these 7-year increments?
The
And
soul contract, okay, so what happened, the 7 cycles, so these are the 7-year soul cycles. So your soul matures in 7-year soul cycles, okay? And the soul cycles we get from, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in astrology, it's in the New Testament, it's in the Old Testament. I mean, it's everywhere, right? There's these 7-year soul cycles. So on your 6th 7-year cycle, so when you turn 35, what happens is you start moving from your ego consciousness into your soul's desires. So ego consciousness, we experience first 35 years of our lives. Again, this is what we're born into. This is societal conditioning, keeping up with the Joneses, got to get married, blah, 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 all the things that we're told we need to do. Around the age of 35, these things start to fall apart at a different pace for a lot of us. But, the most common one's divorce, right? So like my divorce came through at 35. I was right on time, not a day later, thank God, because, I was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. And so these traumas that happen to us between 35 and 42, they're meant to realign us, right? So it feels traumatic because, 35, 36, 37, 38, society tells us you should be established. You should be at the top of your career. You should have everything figured out. But that's actually when everything's falling apart for most people.
So would you recommend people wait until after 35 to get married? Or you're just going to have to face it that it might fall apart around 35?
It's such a unique individual case by case basis, because if you marry the right person, it's not going to fall apart. Right. And so this brings us back. Well, how do you know you're marrying the right person? And this is what I said at the very beginning of the show. The soul pre-plans it. The human does whatever it wants. Majority of our human experience is free will. And we as humans don't always make the wisest choices for ourselves. So this is where I can't say, oh, wait, or don't, I don't know, because every soul's on such a different mission and journey. I don't know that my marriage was a mistake, right? I can't say that. I was with him for 17 years, right? We had an incredible business that had served thousands of people. We have a beautiful daughter. I don't think that was a mistake. I just think our contract came up 17 years, and then it was time for us to part ways.
Yeah.
So would you say that the 35 to 42 year cycle is the most important one for us because of that shift?
I think it can be the most traumatic one. Again, it's a little different for everybody, because I have seen it where people don't quite get it in that cycle. And so the next 7 years, it repeats for them. Right. So some people say, well, I'm 48 and I'm miserable. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you do between 35 to 42? So if you didn't get aligned, then the next 7 year cycle, it literally repeats, right? When you're dating different people, but it's the same energy, it just repeats. So I think that cycle is really important because it shakes our foundation, and your soul is essentially telling you it's time to step into your truth. Right. So I personally call it the spiritual awakening cycle, or we could call it the spiritual deepening cycle, but it's essentially all about realignment, the waking up and the realignment. And then 42 to 49 is the soul embodiment cycle. This is where we're actually meant to step really deep into our truth. So this is where you see people in their 40s starting up a whole new career, like Vera Wang. That was, I think she was a journalist beforehand. And then 40, she finally stepped into being a designer. Gosh, there's a few other ones I made a reel about it. I'm trying to remember, but the Marvel comics, right? The guy that created that, his last name is Lee.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote at 40. At 40 is when he wrote the first one that I think that popped off. So 40 is that age that we're really meant to step into who we are on that deep soul level.
What do you think is, I mean, why is there so much social pressure then that we really want people to go to college, go to get a job, get their career going? There's so much societal pressure. Is that part of what our soul signs up for, or is it we're getting in our own way? Is that more the human will side of it?
Well, I think the soul signs up for it because that's where we are as a civilization right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the soul has a choice unless they're born into, like hippy dippy parents that live on a farm somewhere, and then that could be the choice of the soul too.
Right.
But I think where we are as a civilization, at least the Western civilization, right? Because not all cultures have the same goals per se, but yeah, what we're doing is we're all seeking truth, and so much of what we're fed is not truth. And we are seeing everything collapse right now, right? Because we are going through this great awakening. Like, this is it.
Do you think that's part of why the 35 to 42 cycle is so traumatic? Because we have a society that is telling us we have to do things one way, and so many people have stopped or lost the ability to listen to the soul's guidance, the guidance that they're getting from within. We're told to not listen to that because this is the direction that we're meant to go in, and this is what we're expected to do.
Yeah, I do. I do think it's very traumatic because of all the societal implications. For me, again, I can share my personal story. I launched my first company at 27, and it was a business networking company that was powered by software. So in addition to running this business networking organization, I was also the non-technical co-founder of a tech company. Right. I was usually the only female in the room at the round table. Like, there was so much prestige that came with it. There was so much notoriety. There was a lot. And at 35, my divorce came, and my ex-husband was my technical co-founder. So for me, my divorce was a personal and a business one. And then I will tell you, my feeling now in retrospect is that I should have walked away from that company at 35. But I didn't know how to walk away from my identity, and my ego said, nope, you're staying. And I felt like I wanted to prove to the world that I can do this on my own. I can rebuild whatever, blah, 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 blah. I did. I stayed another 7 years. Okay. So I had the company for 14 years. I stayed the next 7 years, and it was, it was a dream that turned into a complete nightmare because I chose to lead with my ego. Right? Because my identity was wrapped up in the company, and I was like, well, people are looking at me. I'm a leader in this community. Well, like, what else am I going to do? When all along, I've always been who I am. I've always been my intuitive self. I've always been into the mystical things, right? But no one told me it was okay to actually pursue that. So I didn't at that time.
So when you look at your own chart, is that is doing spiritual work a part of your mission?
Yes.
Yeah. So then when people do readings with you, how often do they just have that epiphany and decide, all right, I'm switching gears? Or is it more that it kind of takes them until that next 7-year cycle to evolve into it?
It's so different with everybody because some people are already there, and I just go bloop, just kind of like validate them and push them over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I'll tell you, the only thing they resonate with is their karma. Like, they're so stuck in their karma that they don't even see the beautiful parts of them. So it's all over the board. And I honestly don't know how many people after my readings change their life. Unless they email me to tell me, I don't know. But every so often somebody will email and be like, hey, I just want to let you know after a reading, it changed the whole trajectory, or did this or did that. And I'm like, that's incredible. But I don't have statistics to give you.
Right.
I have to say, and I think this person will be okay with me sharing their story, providing I don't out who they are. listening to your videos about the 7-year cycle was really interesting to me, because there is someone in my life who is based in Australia, and they probably in the 36 to 42, 35 to 42 cycle was getting signs to leave the career they were in, but it was safe. It was everything they had ever known. That is where they had been since they'd left school. And so they stayed. And so in that next cycle, where you say they repeat the cycle if they don't learn the lessons, they were violently forced out of their career. The universe gave them no other option. And it was traumatic for them. And it was difficult for me, because I'm supporting from over here saying, you can do this, it's fine. And they are an incredible healer. And what they have done and how they've changed their life is incredible. But it was that violent push out of the universe going, listen, I've given you all the subtle signs that you need. I've been there with the banner and you haven't listened. So now I'm just coming with the grenade and I'm going to throw it onto you. And it's quite incredible to witness. And I kind of wish I had found you before they went through all of that, because it may have tipped them over the edge first.
Yeah, well, maybe not, but that's okay. I mean, again, we all have our own journey.
So one of the other things that you talked about, I mean, you've talked about a lot in your videos, but relationships. And the thing that I find fascinating about this, because I have a real issue with people in twin flames. And I know there are plenty of people that watch this show that are all about twin flames. And I've talked to some people about it. And I'm a big believer in you can believe and sort of follow whatever it is that works for you and resonates. For me, I feel like the whole twin flame thing is often an excuse for really poor behavior in relationships. They sit there and say, that, you know, they're my twin flame, so this is why they've done this and this and this. And I just say, to me, it's a karmic relationship. And if it's karmic, I find that often for me in my history, they've been reasonably traumatic in a sense that they come in and they're so powerful and there are massive lessons learned. And after the fact, I'm able to see it, but going through it can be incredibly difficult. But what are your thoughts through doing this work on soulmates, karmic relationships, twin flames, all the terminology that can possibly be used and attached to romantic relationships?
Yeah, great question. I'm so glad you brought this up. So I'll tell you, one of the things that I used to talk about all the time is karmic connections and karmic relations. I still do, because I believe that karmic relationships and connections are the most intense that we will experience. And when I do my soul readings, the soul chart readings, when I look at two charts side by side, I can actually see if there's a karmic connection. So that I can explain to people. And oftentimes something like that it is almost healing, right? Somebody's coming in and they're in like trauma with this relationship. And I'm like, look, it's a karmic connection. Here's what's happening and da-da-da-da-da. So, but having said all that, I do think, and I agree with you, there's almost this like toxic relationship now with, is it karmic? Is it twin flame? Is it this? Is it that? And so many people come to me, and I cannot tell you how many people, to the point where I'm like, I can't even take them seriously. And I'm saying this in a nice way. I'm just saying, because I have thousands of people coming at me and they're like, I think I'm in a twin flame relationship. And I'm like, okay, we cannot all be in a twin flame relationship. They're so rare. They're so rare. And oftentimes when people tell me this, I look at their charts, I'm like, that's not a twin flame, that's karmic. But taking it a step further, I've myself personally have come to the point of it doesn't matter, because you can be in a karmic relationship and have the twin flame experience, right? They're running away, they're coming back, like whatever the twin flame experience is, but it can be with a karmic connection. Or you could have a twin flame experience and experience the karma from it as well. So it's like, it almost doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is the awareness that it's bringing to you. Because here's what matters about those relationships. I'll tell you, the label doesn't matter. But when you encounter one of those relationships, it is a deep soul connection. Okay, that's not a label. That's just what it is. Meaning, it's just a deep soul connection, and you know a deep soul connection when you experience one, right? It's like having a friend that you immediately bond with versus somebody you casually hang out, have lunch with. It's different. So the deep soul connections, they'll show up in your life, and they're there usually to mirror something to you. That's what matters. What are they mirroring to me? Do I have self-worth issues? Do I have if you have abandonment issues, they will absolutely run and abandon you. But that could be a karmic connection as well. So that's what I'm saying. It's irrelevant. The labels are irrelevant. And just because you meet one of these deep soul connections, it does not mean you're meant to be with them. Does not, absolutely. And this is where it gets so confusing. And I've lived through this. So I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking down to people, because I know how confusing this is. I'll tell you my story. I met one of my deepest soul connections in this lifetime. I met him when I was 8 years old. Like, so young, and I remember looking at him, and it was just this like I had no words for it back then, but in retrospect, I recognized him. Like, that's what it was. I recognized him. So, later on in life as adults, we reconnected, and it was just, the connection was so palpable and so confusing all at the same time. I'm not going to go through all the heartache and all the drama that happened with this person, but I will tell you where I stand now in life, knowing everything I know. This was a deep soul connection, and we were not meant to be romantic. But the way our souls are is we maybe are meant to be more of each other's like friends, friends, like people, somebody you can lean on, like in a deep soulful way. But what happens is oftentimes this person comes into our life and we confuse it for a romantic relationship. And then we think, well, I've never experienced this. That means I'm supposed to be with this person. And it doesn't. And the way it doesn't is because it's usually a toxic relationship when you two are together.
And before I allow Anne to get in with a question, because apparently I'm going to keep doing this to her today, what is your definition of a twin flame relationship, and why is it so rare?
Okay, so before I answer this, I'm also going to tell you twin flame is not my niche. Mm-hmm. Karmic relationships is that I can talk about all day long. Twin flames, I haven't studied. The information has never come to me. So with my dear soul sister, Katie, we sat down. This was amazing. We went to Sedona for 2 weeks, and we just sat in channel for 2 weeks, and we received information on a course that we have about divine soulmates. Okay, and I'm throwing another term at you. You're like, what is that? What are divine soulmates? But we basically channeled in information how to connect with your divine soulmate. And the divine soulmate, that's the soulmate that God, creator, source, essentially picks for you. It's like a preordained marriage by God for you. Like that's the one we all want. And we call that the divine soulmate. And what the creator said, and this is where I think things can get confusing. The creator said, you're twins of the soul, meaning like your soul is from the same makeup. Okay, so I don't know if this is the same as the twin flame concept, because if you look at the twin flame concept, they talk about the runner, the this, the that. When you meet your divine soulmate, they don't leave you. You know what I mean? Like when you actually meet the soulmate that God preordained for you and wants you to be with, like I'm not saying it's a perfect relationship, but it doesn't sound to me like what they describe the twin flame relationship to be. And so creator I've never received information on the twin flame, so I can't speak to it from that point. And then regurgitating what the internet says, I don't know how much of that is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go with the idea of divine soulmate and a karmic relationship. is everybody ordained to have a divine soulmate, or do most people end up with karmic relationships? What would be a realistic expectation people should have about relationships? Not that will be what people abide by, but it's always good to hear.
Absolutely.
What's realistic to strive for?
I love that you said people won't abide for it, because that's literally what I was about to start with, is that most relationships are free will. Okay. So the same way I got into a relationship with this person that I told you about, that it shouldn't have been a romantic relationship, but it was for a moment in time, at least, because there's a lot of confusion. So do we all have a preordained soulmate? Absolutely. So the Kabbalah tells us, and Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, right? So it's the spiritual part of Judaism, if people aren't familiar, but Kabbalah tells us 40 days before you are conceived in your mother's womb, a divine voice proclaims who your divine soulmate for that lifetime is going to be. It's not a prophecy. It doesn't mean you're going to meet the soulmate, but we all have a divine counterpart. So what happens with most of us, we end up in karmic situations because, I mean, why do people get in relationships? We're lonely. We're scared. We need to leave our parents' house. We need somebody to share the rent with. Like, people get into relationships for the most, ridiculous reason. They're human reasons. I get it. But anything that's not pure love and truth is karma. How many people do you know hold out for that one true relationship? There's not many of us. I wasn't one of, and I will tell you, my ex-husband, I met him at 17. Okay. And when I looked into his eyes, I recognized him. My ex-husband is one of my soulmates, but this is what I didn't know at 17. He's my brother soulmate. He's literally from my soul group, and we are like brother and sister. I didn't know that at 7, but I looked into his eyes and I recognized them, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my soulmate. So did I marry the wrong person? Not necessarily, but he's not that divine soulmate.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, Anne, so this is what I was saying. I love what you asked me, but also it's so confusing. There's no template. You know what the template is? You know what the answer is? You have to listen to your soul and trust your intuition. And so many of us, we just don't do that because we're not taught to do that from a young age.
I do think I agree with what you're saying about how your marriage wasn't a mistake. It was part of your journey and your growth, and it got you to the point that you got to, because I think about the people from my soul group who I know unequivocally are part of it. And I could probably tell you about how I met every single one of them, because the meeting was so powerful. And one of them was a karmic relationship that was so quick and fast. We met literally by a pool in Hawaii one day, and we started having the deepest conversation. And I always say to people, we had that conversation because I think we both thought we'd never see each other again. So it was a safe place to just say all the things that you wouldn't say to anybody else. And it turned into something else and then ended really, really quickly. But there was a karmic element to it, but we knew each other from the second we started speaking. My ex-husband, I met him at 10. And we didn't get together until I was 15, he was 16, and we were together until we were both 25. And again, I've done past life regression, and I know we were meant to be married in another lifetime. It wasn't even the last one, but a number of lifetimes ago, we were meant to be married, and he was killed. So we never got to fulfill that cycle. And so while he wasn't my ultimate soulmate that I was meant to do this life with, we finished what we started and hadn't been able to finish previously. And I think sometimes when our emotions get involved, we get angry at people and we carry this anger and all these things that go along with it, versus being able to take a step back and actually look back at why these relationships were so powerful for us, but also why we had to let them go to move on.
Yeah.
I don't know if I needed to share that, but I thought that I would. So the other thing that you talked about in regard to relationships was the people that live with their housemate husband. So the romantic relationship isn't even there anymore, but they're just
Roommates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that part of our soul contract, or is that the human part of us going, it is safer here than stepping into the unknown?
Yeah, that's definitely the human part saying it's safer here than in the unknown. I mean, look, the contract could be that you're with that person, but the reason you're with them is because you have to learn to choose yourself. So if you learn to choose yourself, then you maybe will, step out of the marriage, or not step out, but, leave the marriage. Or if you don't choose yourself, you choose safety, you stay in this karmic connection, which is, a roommate relationship.
I ask because how old am I? I'm 46, but I have so many girlfriends who are older and younger, but I watch a lot of them, especially those with children, that are stuck in those sorts of relationships. And from observation, it's fear that stops them from stepping out. And I'm hoping some of them listen to this and go, okay, I can, I can, and it'll be okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, there's a time and a place, because once you have kids, you really can change your trajectory to maybe what it was supposed to be. Again, that's why I say majority of our human experience is free will. Most of us don't follow our soul's contract, our soul's purpose. Now, again, we might find our way back to it, later in life. I mean, there's so many possibilities. There's no black and white answer for anything. But once children are involved, the situation does change. And so for some people, it might make sense to stay because of the children. I'll tell you, for me, I was with my ex for 17 years, and it was almost like the moment our daughter was born, I felt a shift. Like I felt it was over, but I wasn't a place to leave. Like I was very, like, my pregnancy and the post-pregnancy, like I wasn't physically or mentally well, right? So I wasn't going to leave. The moment I felt like I had enough strength to go, I did. And she was just barely 3. Right. And there's a whole lot more to the story. But my point is, I knew I had to leave as soon as I could before it would cause my daughter any sort of like damage. But you know what I mean? Like splitting up when they're a little bit older, like, well, now they know mom and dad together. Whereas my daughter, she was 3. So like we both have her 50-50, and to her, it's such the norm. Like there's no trauma. Like this is her norm. This is all, like she has friends whose parents are divorced, and they say to her, you're so lucky your parents get along. Like, I mean, like that is not their situation. So for me, I was very aware that if I stay any longer, I may not be able to leave until she's much older. And that's a very real thing that parents have to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so what I'm wondering is, because you mentioned earlier that you've done Natalie's chart before. So I wondered, would you be able, if Natalie's okay with it,
Yeah.
would you
I
be
already
able
know,
to
yes.
show us, do an example of where to look for these sorts of things? So when we know, oh, I think I'm off my mission, I need to reevaluate, and the chart can help with that.
Sure. So what would you like me to like talk to in particular, or how do we dive into it? Because there's so many ways.
What do you think, Natalie? Well, I mean, a big thing with Natalie that I'd be curious about is her move. She moved around the world, literally, and that's a huge decision. So it makes me wonder if that was in her soul contract.
Okay, wonderful question. So the soul contract doesn't necessarily talk to specifics like that. It's more about, I'll give you examples. Okay, so for instance, Natalie's spiritual karma is a 4-4. Okay, and so this tells me the keyword for is trust. Right. So again, when I'm in a reading, I don't know how this energy plays out in their life. I just see the energy that she's carrying. So for me, when I see a 4-4, I know that there might be issues of abandonment that have played out. Right.
I will confirm. Yes.
Yes. And so so the 4 is usually the lesson of, well, it's not, I don't like to use the word lesson. The karma of abandonment is about rebalancing, right? Because let's talk about karma. What is karma? We're coming in to rebalance something and make it right. It's actually the soul giving itself an opportunity to fix something. So maybe in a past life, maybe she abandoned somebody, I don't know, or herself, right? And so in this lifetime, she is here to not abandon herself and to realize she's never been abandoned. So the way this might show up in her life is people seemingly abandoning her, right? Relationships, parents, friends, whatever. And her goal is to work through and rebalance this karma and to step into the positive of, and the positive of the 4 is all about having deep trust, not just in ourselves. It's trust, it's faith, it's in the source, it's in the universe. And it's just knowing, like wholeheartedly knowing, I've never been abandoned. And the 4s, they're so, God, it is so easy for them to manifest. Remember you said you're a manifestor in human design. So people that do their human design and then do my charge, they're like, you literally said the same thing, right? So the 4s are phenomenal manifestors because they actually have this ability to reach into the universe, and literally whatever they want is at their fingertips. The key, they just have to trust, right? The moment she goes into scarcity, boop, it shuts off. And now she can't, she can't. So what I see is how her energy works. Through the conversation with the person one-on-one, now I'm able to pick up a little bit more. Right? So for instance, so that's her karma. Now let's talk about her soul destiny, right? Because that's everyone's okay. What's the soul destiny? So Natalie has an 8/8 soul destiny. So this tells me she's here to embody her talents and bring them to the collective. So Natalie's a light worker. Okay. Like, let's just put, like, I'm trying to use frames that people understand. She's a light worker and she's here to use her specific talents and bring them into society. And her spiritual talent is a 17/8, which is a public speaking frequency. All right. So you see how like, I'm not telling her anything about herself she doesn't know. She's like, oh yeah, public speaking. Okay. I've always been drawn to that. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's in your spiritual talent. So this is where these charts that are very validating for people. So Natalie hears them. She's like, okay, I'm on the right track. Right now, whether she's speaking, in America or Australia, I mean, that's her free will, right? But as long as she's speaking into the collective, she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. Now, I believe where the U.S. sits, because they have like chakras around the world. And I'm not an expert in this, but I saw a show on it and it just made sense. Where the U.S. sits, we're like the throat chakra, I think. So, like, we're basically the truth speakers. So it makes sense if she's here if she came into this world to speak, she's going to be attracted to the country where she can energetically speak.
Wow.
So yeah, in a nutshell. Sorry, there's so much more, but that's like a little bit of it.
You can continue on, but there was a question. I think Natalie might have just answered it. Someone asking, what system are you using? How would you describe, what label would you give to the system that you use?
Well, we talked about it earlier, right? Yeah, it's called the Soul Contract reading, and we're converting the name into sound frequencies using the Hebrew language.
Okay.
So in regard to looking at many soul contracts over time, there was a video or a reel that you had done on social media talking about people with traumatic childhoods. So that's obviously something that you can see within the contract. Is there a commonality that people that tend to have traumatic childhoods have moving into life later on, or it's just luck of the draw?
Well, there's different trauma, right? There's different trauma. Sometimes I see traumatic childhoods where they experience abuse and disempowerment, and a part of their journey is here to learn they're actually the powerful ones, and they need to learn how to step into their power and use it with integrity. Okay, so these are usually, that's the 9 energy. Sometimes I see like a 21-3 or 3-3, and this tells me in childhood they were made to feel completely worthless. Right, so I'll see that, and that's a different kind of trauma. Doesn't mean that they weren't, maybe they, you know, they weren't abused or anything like that, but they were just made to feel like you're nothing and you will never be anything, you know. So they're here to learn to step into their self-worth and to realize they're worthy of being heard, worthy of being seen. And these are usually the deep souls that come here with deep wisdom to share. And they're like really shy and quiet and they don't want to be on stage, right? So that's a different type of childhood trauma to work through. There are times where I see charts where, like, if I see 3 10-1s or some combination of like a 10-1 or a 19-1, but it's like 3 of them, this person had a rough, I don't know if there's another word for rough childhood, but like bad. Like this is a whole other category of bad. Okay, this isn't just, you know, mom wasn't, you know, emotionally present, you know, dad would slap me around. This was like, this is bad. And these souls, they come from the angelic realm. And so I don't know, I don't know. I haven't made this connection yet. I don't know why then, maybe somebody else knows, but why the angelic realm souls will choose to come here and have these traumatic experiences. But these are the super powerful healers. The healing energy literally just flows through them. I mean, it's in them. Like they can touch you and you'll just feel, you'll feel something, even if you're not spiritual, you know, like, so sometimes, you know, because I do readings for people that aren't super spiritual. And the way that I'll ask them is, do people like to hug you? Like, yeah, people do like to hug me. I'm like, because you have healing energy flowing through you and they can feel it. They may not even be able to verbalize it.
Wow. It's so interesting because so many of the people we've talked to on this show and other shows that we've done on Highvibe, it's people who have these really difficult childhoods, unbelievably bad, and then they turn into these amazing healers. And so, of course, you know, the thing I think of is, are they sent into certain soul groups to bring that healing, to help advance the people they come into to contact with?
I believe so, but I find that so few of them are able to find their own healing and forgiveness. Right? I mean, some do, but, and mind you, I'm meeting them for 1 hour in their entire life journey, right? So I don't know what happens once they get off the call with me, but, you know, forgiveness, I mean, there are souls that come in here to learn how to forgive. And the souls that come here to learn how to forgive also have very traumatic things happen to them, usually by people they love, because, like, how are you going to learn to forgive if somebody doesn't give you a reason?
Do you also think that sometimes the most powerful healers that do have these traumatic childhoods, they come in and these are the soul lessons that they have picked for themselves? Because if they're not going to consciously remember what it is that they came here to do, this will propel them into that work because they're searching for an answer, which leads them to their own healing and therefore able to help others.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, you know, trauma is like the best lesson, unfortunately. I will tell you, I don't think we have to learn through trauma. Yes, trauma and pain can be a really good teacher, but we don't have to learn that way. And I'll tell you, especially now as we're going through the awakening process, like the veil is so thin. Like you can almost reach out and touch spirit, like it's right there, right? And so there are other ways of finding our path and finding our truth. I just think in our own evolution of where we are as a human civilization, we're still, you know, like shadow work is a thing, you know, plant medicine that just takes you deep right into your trauma or like your psyche, like that's sort of where we are. but I also like, we don't have to be there, but you know, there hasn't been enough of a, I don't know, like a momentum yet to show people there's a different way.
Do you think because you've talked several times about the Great Awakening, and I think Anne and I have talked about it at length with most of the people that come on the show, because all of us sort of living in this world are feeling this shift, and we feel more and more people opening up to the ideas and the conversations that we're having. Do you think with your readings, because I know you have an insane wait list, and so now you've moved to a lottery system for people to be able to get a reading. Do you think that a lot of these readings are essentially divinely guided in terms of who ends up with you, because they're at that point? Some of them are obviously already there and just needing confirmation that they're on the right path. And for others, even though you don't know what the follow-up is, but it's more of that tipping point for them where even if they don't jump off the cliff the next day, but it plants a seed which leads to them taking those steps to have that spiritual growth. Do you think that's one of the things that's going on for you?
That's sorry, I think we asked a few questions there. I do think it's divine timing for these people, 1,000%. And I actually tell every single one of my clients that I meet with nowadays, I remind them of that. I'm like, you know, this was divine timing. Like at this point, I've always believed that whoever's in front of me, I needed to meet. I've always believed that, but now it's even more so, because it is a little bit more difficult to meet with me. And I mean, I am so honored that people want to meet with me. You know what I mean? Like I'm still, to me, I don't see myself any different in doing these readings than when I first started. But I think because of my Instagram presence, maybe people see me differently, and they come in and they'll say something and I'm like, oh, it almost takes me aback. I'm like, oh, like, no, I'm just here to like help you with your soul's journey. Like, and I'm so glad you made it, because it's not easy to, you know, I mean, I just can't meet with that many people, right? There's only so many readings I can do. So I think it's divine timing for them. Absolutely. And it's still, these people are still being put in front of me for a reason, for my own journey as well.
And besides just the one-on-one readings, do you do events or speaking engagements where you can meet with groups of people? Do you lead classes?
Oh, it's a great question. So I don't do speaking I haven't yet. Okay, let's put it that way. I'm so comfortable sitting at my house and just like doing this on the internet, you know. I'm raising my daughter. You know, I like to play pickleball, you know, like I just like to live my life. But and I will tell you, in my past, you know, when I had my other company, it was so extremely public that I was on many stages and in public eye a lot. So like now I really enjoy being in my own space and just not being out and about so much. But I have done a class, and I've done a few classes actually. And it was really cool. It was just really cool to connect with people, but it's not something I have on my schedule that rotates. This is the entrepreneurial side of me. I like to create things and do them, and then create something else and do, you know, so I don't have like a schedule. I do things as I feel called to them. And I'll tell you this next class I'm being called to, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this out loud now, and this is going to like keep me accountable. It's not in the works yet, but in my mind it is, but not physically. But I'm being guided to do some sort of a class on name optimization. Like, how do we optimize our name to bring in the best frequencies for ourselves? So if we look at my name, Gellyahnah, that's my optimized name. And with that name, I brought in this incredible divine feminine energy to sit on top of my broken heart energy to help me heal my heart, so I can heal my heart and fully step into my, you know, feminine divine and help others with that energy.
Yeah, I saw you, or one of the videos on your Instagram was about, sometimes your married name, even if you've been going by a married name, some people may want to keep it because it's a better name for them. Or, I don't know, or can we just change our names and we change our soul mission?
You don't change your soul mission, but you make it easier, harder, or keep it neutral. So when you get married, when you get married or change your name for any other reason, right? Because people change their names all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is you're bringing in an energetic layer to sit on top of your original birth name. Okay, so think of your original birth name like in astrology. When you're born is when you're born. You don't get to change that because you want to put an extra I in there or an extra 5 in there, right? So it's permanent. Like, this is the soul vibration you came in with. But every time you change your name, there's another layer on top of it. And these two layers, it's like a harmony. So it's either going to be like a perfect pitch harmony, or you're going to create disharmony. Because remember, we're working with sound frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at two charts side by side, like your birth name and your married name, I'm able to see how they interact with each other. And so, yes, for women going through divorce, like if they come in as client, they don't even ask me. If they tell me they're going through a divorce, that's one of the first things I do. Are you thinking about changing your name? And let me see all your names, because sometimes it's better for them to keep the name, just because it's actually energetically supporting. It's not about the name. It's about the energy of the name, right? It's energetically supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, it might be better off if they went back to their maiden name. Or my favorite, we come up with a new name for them, like add a middle name or change the spelling of the name.
I never thought of this before, because I've always just thought of names, and I've thought of numerology, because my name that I was born with is, and Natalie, you may not even know this, it's Anne Elizabeth hyphenated and then no middle name. And I've always just put, because everybody always has a middle name, and growing up, some of my friends even had their confirmation name in the middle name. So I always decided, no, I'm going to be Anne, middle name Elizabeth. But did I change my whole frequency by doing that?
No,
Okay.
Because it's still the same.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's your first, middle.
No.
Okay.
Because when I look at the name, I just add it all together.
Yeah, that's what I assume. But it's different from numerology because it's the sound of the name, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so two things. First of all, Anne, you have just changed our interactions, because you will now be Anne Elizabeth. As long as we are friends in this realm, and maybe
My
even
mom
beyond.
will have you.
But so for Gellyahnah, for those people, because I never changed my name when I got married. I don't know why. I always thought I would, and then it happened and I never changed it. So does that just not shift anything at all for me energetically?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's easy. We've got people in the chat asking, what is your astrological sign? And do you know your human design, out of curiosity?
I am a Gemini. My birthday is May 25th. Yeah. And I am a manifesting generator.
Well, thank you for that, because we talk so much about astrology and human design on this channel that it's kind of become a thing that everybody always wants to know. Okay, I think I asked that question. So Anne and I always end every conversation by asking people the same 4 questions, which we find really interesting. So the first one is, what makes you laugh?
What makes me laugh? Oh my gosh. I don't know. A good comedy show, maybe. They're hard to find, but every so often, you actually find a good one. You're like, oh my God, that was like the most amazing night, because laughing gets you high. My daughter makes me laugh. She's 12 now, and you know what she said to me the other day? Sorry, I'm just going to go. Yesterday we walk into the living room and I moved things around. I moved the furniture around, and she's like, what happened? Why did you move? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. She's like, the chair. I'm like, no, everything's the same. It's how it's always been. And she looks at me and she's like, why are you gaslighting me right now? And I'm like, that's a big word for a 12-year-old. And like, so like that, she cracks me up. Okay. So my daughter makes me laugh. That's probably a better answer.
The comedy show of your daughter
Yeah,
makes
there
you
you
laugh.
go. There you go.
All right. So question 2 is, who was your biggest spiritual influence?
Oh, that's I've had so many great teachers. Nicholas being one of them, my teacher that I learned this work from. I will say this work has been life-changing. No words. Another one that I want to call out is actually my soul sister Katie. She's been my greatest spiritual mentor, friend. I mean, we've done so many lifetimes together. And in this lifetime, we met only about 7 years ago. We met as adults. And she does energy work. She's been doing readings and energy work from most of her life. She's one of those people that stepped into her true path from a very young age. And she has channeled in this healing work. It's called Connecting with the Creator. And she taught me how to do this energy healing work about 3.5 years ago. And as I started doing it, at first I was like, oh, okay, I'm in this. I mean, it's cool. Like, feels amazing. I got consistent with it, and it has created true miracles in my life, like true miracles, like things I did not think were possible. Like I've seen with my own eyes, like the miracles, what's the word? Like the immaterial things, like the supernatural. That's the word I'm looking for. Supernatural, miraculous things. So, yeah, it's, I've had a few great ones, but it's going to be, Katie and then, Nicholas for teaching me this work. And I've had other great ones. Dolores Cannon, I never met her, but I learned so much from her,
Yeah.
And what would your advice be to people on how to transcend fear?
When you're standing in your heart, there's no fear. So if you're in fear, that means you're standing outside of your heart. So come back to your heart. Our heart does not know duality. So yeah, when you're in your heart space, there's no fear.
Great answer. And then the last one is, what's the best piece of spiritual advice that you've ever been given?
Spiritual advice that I've ever been given. Oh my gosh, I'll tell you another great story. Sorry, all my answers come with stories.
I love it.
So, when I was 34, I was at a crossroads in my marriage, right? We split up at 35. So 34, I was at a crossroads. I mean, it was, years coming to it. I didn't know what to do. So what does a girl like me do? I go to a psychic fair. Right? So I went to a psychic fair, and I didn't know anybody there. So I picked the most random psychic, like out, I'm like, okay, she looks nice. I don't know. I sat in front of her. She looked at me, and I'm there to get advice on my marriage. Like I'm just out of sorts, whatever. I sit in front of her and she looks at me and she says, "You're sitting on the wrong side of the table. You need to be doing readings for people." And I thought to myself, okay, this is like the kookiest. I picked the kookiest one here. Like, how does she think me, like the leader of this technical, business networking group is going to be doing like readings for people? Like she's clearly not seeing things right. But it stayed with me. And when time came to it, I was like, Angelique knew what she was talking about. I'm actually still in touch with her. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What she said to me that day, like those words right there were so profound. Yeah, we were in touch. So, and here I am. You know what I mean? Like she planted that seed in me, like Anne, how you were saying, like, or Natalie, maybe you said like sometimes when I do the readings, I plant the seeds. I don't know what's going to happen. And then later on they sprout. And that's what she did for me. She planted that little seed. And when the time came, I was ready for it.
I love it. So the neighborhood psychic fair can be transformative. Natalie and I have been to one of those together.
We always have so much fun because you meet the most random people, but have some incredible conversations, even if the fair itself, because some of those fairs are not always the biggest or the best, or I don't know, but you find these people that are like gold nuggets just strewn throughout. And I always look at those and think, this is why I came here, just to speak to this one person, and then I can leave. I don't know how you feel about it, Anne.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Yeah. Oh, let me just say one quick thing, that the seed that was planted for me in a psychic fair I went to a long, long time ago was, I was with my high school boyfriend, and we went, and I was thinking, oh, this is so fun. You know, like my boyfriend will go to this psychic fair with me. He's so spiritual. And then she did a tarot reading for me, and she says, your boyfriend, or this, your boyfriend goes out at night. And I was like, no. But turns around, I mean, next thing you know, yeah, he was cheating on me at the time. So, yeah. And I still remember that to this day, because it was one of those moments where you're just like, you think, wow, we really do receive these divine messages. And do we choose to open up to them and really pay attention, or are we shutting down because we don't want to see the truth, you know?
Yeah.
Did she plant the seed so you started paying more attention to what he was doing, or did he become more obvious?
No, I think when I left that, I looked back and all these little things started to add up, and it was sort of, oh, and then a friend and I did some sleuthing and we found out. So yeah.
There's no detective work like a woman needing to find answers to something.
Yes.
So, Gellyahnah, are you still on TikTok? Because that was where I found you. I know you've got a huge presence on Instagram, but is TikTok still a thing for you?
You know, my account's on there and I post, but their algorithm has changed so much that I don't really get shown, right? My content is, but I do post on there. Instagram seems to be a little bit more friendly towards me, but it also depends on the season. You know, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But my main home at the moment is Instagram.
Okay. So for everybody wanting to find Gellyahnah, I will make sure in the link below we have her website, her Instagram, TikTok, all the links so that you can go and check out her videos. They're so informative and easy to watch. And that was what got me hooked and why I ultimately booked in for a reading. And our reading was a few years ago now, but I still think about it. I have the recording and it was phenomenal. So I can't recommend it more highly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak to us today. Hopefully we'll add to your already ginormous waiting list, and some of our viewers can get a reading as well. And Anne, thank you so much for being here and doing this with me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.